80. When nature is subtle, and it compacts into a single common flower, and that flower was never as natural as the traditions which have been forgotten, then there will be a problem and a mess. And the beasts are impossible to not be so, and a little part of the mess is impossible to clean up. The beasts are sometimes like people, and the way they misunderstand is common, that there is no direction that can be put to use to understand though they think that there is one. Then the letting go is of the speech to make in the air a name. The commonplace can become but a play of winds, and their passings in the air subject a cause of a way where in the air the mess can be thrown about until it rests in some place. And the doorways open to the interior, and our faces touch, the space is our space, and the bulk in the space of our space rises into the thinness of thinking where a smoothness dries in its rest. And the pushing down and the rest of the thoughts from above pleases the body. Just once things level out, and the bulk comes back. This is the previous leveling out which looks forward to accomplish what in the air happens when it rises. The leveling out steps forward over the floor, and it cannot be easily described when the space all around us is warmed by our bodies. It is difficult to describe the thought of that warmth of safety and togetherness. Yet, I imagine that where the heights are is a stillness which still is rising separated from the beginning it had before. For me the rising capturing my body lets it go on its indescribable way through the bright morning, through the atmosphere rising together a whole action forward going. Upwards rising, almost like I knew what I was doing in the air at these heights with happiness being with you still, for still this is the stillness from before which is as that of the sun set free. 81. The philosophy will be filled by the wind, and it will be torn apart above the open field, and silence will settle. And, the breaking off of it all by the wind will scatter the matter. Silence will build up in the scattering and it will represent the uncertainty of the solitude which has formed in the building. The matter will collect again in the open, and it will come from the wind. And, where the matter scatters upon the lands, there it will make, conflicting with the wind, a pass to be whole again, yet it has no way to ride out the negativity of dissatisfaction, and because of that it will react to its loss with wasted surrender in its heart. The concrete certainty is not as important an issue as the serious brightness of the air. And, the father hungers for the green, and he lets go of the green, yes. And, his loss is of a time in the New York Civic Center where his co-workers have taken over the whole new emptiness. 82. I have no plan. I am blocked by a wind that has no configuration. And Frank Lloyd Wright of Falling Water the architect is, yet a more traditional storm has come from up above, and the clear sky cannot be. The sponsors were lost in the end, and there was never a process to their sponsorship which came after the laying down of these blueprints. This was not approved, and in the end there can be no budget for I have been loved, and nothing has been wasted still but that it has been put to use for some purpose. And it is not important that this limitation skillfully vanishes into nothingness where only its emptiness rests as a blockage to me. And, yet the inconsistency is in me when I move, that by moving I might act to find some way to forgive myself for waiting. 83. I do not have any questions, and I care not to know the difference between a building and a sculpture, yet I accept as much of life as I can as what life has purpose for its feeling. So the buildings are certainly buildings not to view with disgust, and the sculptures are certainly somewhat non-functional, yet if I were to desire them to stay that way, then I should not assume that my ignorance would be as much a space to add things to as that formlessness which dissolves them as the clouds do in the sky. Those sculptures do not connect to anything but that the method of their dissolution has for us a brightness of design that an ignorance has too, where what is meant by our weakness overpowering us due to our misunderstanding is just that there is a simple turn of discovery which can bring back to life its purpose. And that its goodness cannot still run away is even so when it seems it has no purpose or point to its close. 84. It is an answer to evolution to have nothing to think about. The floor is of glass, and all is planned to have no particular design. The universe itself is a chaos of answers which are not set free by the mind's thinking. The limitlessness pushes all the way forward, and goodness can be shaped into its whole. And, whatever has disrupted the center is as abstract as can be without any help by the outside whatsoever. The plan was not to assemble in the air some poles which stood up straight so as to be props for what the crane driver could discover. Instead, the made-up depth of the glass floor has been hid, and the glue has set to its top and the bottom has disappeared as one plate. The structure has destabilized and it wobbles. There is a city in the clouds without cables, without ropes or posts, without the wholeness of reality but with the last smoothness of air that strikes up the chalky clouds at last as the wind that settles down puffing itself outwards above the land. And I'm surprised that there was no foundation in the end, nor to its dissipation was there a forgetfulness but one that all could understand. And, the top smooths over where once it bulged, centering upon a cloud that has always smoothed what above us must have been clear and domed. 85. The formlessness is wasted on the field, the bottom plateau is taken away, it will just break off naturally the bottom tree. The higher plateau and the top of the tree lower upon the field from the heights as to the ends of it all skyward present launched amid. And, as I take away the safety net, the formlessness from top to bottom is a formlessness without motion upward launched. The top of the stadium breaks off from its ends where a pole is revealed, and no plan was made for the safety net with formlessness. The cubic bracing has broken off where the top was, and the formlessness was the answer whereby breaking away its top has spread. I did not prepare for this as the foundation has condensed without need for a plumb bob, and I like what happened to the width of the field's look. The original book never had a plan as its text and white clouds on a large scale made whole the details of the surprise of the light's source. And, there were no marks to heap up for there was no rain set into place that for one single answer I could rest having answered it. The field is the answer for the longed truck, the answer for the planted flowers, the answer for the space to leave when all is calm. And, then the city inspector will come and the whole of it will break away even when there joins the grass to the dirt brown and green. The original leaving is of a picture which is not a photocopy of the ruins, but one of the whole broken land closed up again. 86. The floor is forever of an ancient formlessness, and it breaks off where the floor lowers. And, because there was no plan, the floor divides between levels which do not meet. The broken off bulge of the floor's gap is not approachable, and neither is it safe yet to test its glass. For where no blueprints were drawn out, there is a deepness to the floor, and a garden is separate from it. No letters to potential buyers were copied, and nature herself felt a sorrow below. And, because there was no floor plan, the rejection of the ends of the floor still made for many a good time there. There were no doorways made either, and what was a common blunder has been exposed as many heights of the ground were left to the open air. And the sculptural hole was as mysterious upon the floor as the energy it took to keep it there, and part of it broke away in the end from the rest. 87. From top to bottom nature is normal, yet it cannot be proved an impossibility that nature inside and outside is random. For some of the way through its valleys runs off into the air when it bulges upwardly. And at this topmost connection is a space that is certainly rough, and it is understood that it breaks off from the one whole form when it smooths out. The separation of nature from its many parts is the normal idea, and domestically the height has at its peak a thin point where all rests. And, at that height with all that is broken off, something is wrong about the heaviness below that was not arranged. And, there was left a little path widening where the height broke away from the fullness, and in the air everything is the same as it has always been since it was left alone. The cause of it all was an emptiness, and each thing has for itself no connection with what has been so very normal around where a field and its grass are withering. The farther off fields have houses upon them, and at the origin of this field, there is known to be a wasteland of potential certainty where such a foundation has no other opportunity left but to be understood. 88. The end cannot be reached by reflection, and the mess of the world stretches far away that in nature connections may be made which bring no end. The demand that time and timelessness have no end is part of the sculpture of its architecture. And, the winds scatter these old arguments. And, the scattering is done little by little as happens when thinking. It is as if ideas have to happen so as not to be privately allowed to any individual. The past is of weeks and nights, and the minutes pass at last which must, and they must advance their numbers to some common blunder. This is not a hotshot rig which shoots off unto its end, and though it is a wandering, the little water is the formlessness which carries itself onward. And, that water has expanded to an ocean, and the random storm falls as in its time yet there is no picture which the form can take after it dissolves. No research was done, nor maintenance to keep the water from dissolving, and over weeks of nothing of a picture, finally all became blue again. There was no construction of a deck, and neither was there a print process which would have processed the diagram as an innovative accomplishment. There was nothing on the list since the clouds were nameless, and they could not help the numbers unravel themselves but an imbalance was present. And, the demand was for a diagram, of which there was none, neither a table of contents nor a sheet was passed around of which to speak. And, the blueness was the only answer to which the numbers were trusted. And where the sponsors should have been was only the beginning of another high day. Inch by inch the original plan came together. The wonderful labyrinth to explore was made with steel I-beams. And the fountains and gardens were here. Even the architecture of the mess was here, and upon the ground was a marble stone on which was engraved the name M.O.A.T., the monumental outrageousness around DX. 89. The students of high schools have no support, and they themselves are more than natural even when there is no cause for being so. Their solitude cannot be caused by neglect, nor will they stand around needlessly for approval to be solitary. This city is one which was on a countryside, and the neighborhood is in a sleepy state. Always the least self-reliant character will not become himself or herself, and to become so is not because thought has had its independence, but because a lack of dependence upon happiness was lost. A little too common is the present time, and to use it before it withers is possible, for being discontent with originality is not an authentic position. And, to keep wasting an effort to think about making war against what comes naturally will be made, but nothing will be won by doing so. And, until the beliefs are victorious that bring one back into the public eye, there will be less desire to lose the best of what the students can become, and they will leave our attention to be elsewhere given. 90. There is no meeting of bodies, but meaning, even in the suggestive sense, still will not be as insightful as the fact that I need some help to follow through with my own solitude. It is not wanting to give it all to be humble, and then misunderstanding was never so contrived so as to think that by some action a construction might take place. And, though it is not yet built, still what is built serves to project that which will become so, and by this vision of the incredible idea will the idea have time incredibly to happen. What was not appropriate to have lost has been recovered, and with a healthy beauty the countryside will be developed when the sensitivities occur for it. And, neither Thomas Jefferson nor Jacques Rousseau are here to answer for what will happen to the whole, and the landscape will have its place without them, even without emotion which they might have had to make new what they could not have seen then. The fields are open, and there is no warehouse nor city buildings to have their public shows, but the answer was to wander back into that solitude which was not planned nor chambered in any commercial real estate. 91. When I am not in Hondo, and I wander the field, and when I do not feel limited by where I step, then a bigger field will emerge, and so will Leroy. And, when there are no libraries nor phones nor books around in the country, then I will not be in Gonzales but I will be 65 miles out. And, there will be no occasional visitors from whom I can borrow any money, nor will there be built anything to store the newsletters. The farmers will not borrow money either to develop their sites, but freely they will donate land near the highways around Corpus Christi. And what once was a department will go on farther away from the counties within this 30-mile radius. And, yet a support for my rest will come back. The apartments and the cars to drive have been in the counties. And one income will be sponsored for the architecture to publish advertisements. There will be no postcards nor books to read, and it will not be important that the designing is over, and yet a time to work for the future still will have no plan. And, I will not need to make a formula to build anything, but with my work I shall plan on working without interruptions to my actions. The sponsors will refer to loans, and the cities will not sell out their workers who help to build them up, and there is one way with one material to build them up. And, there will be no line which will help to pave new paths unless the sculpture becomes an architecture and the architects become serious sculptors. 92. When working for everything to be right, and the breakfast happens over a nice time, then the silence will come without illusion or a speech will happen without illusion. And whatever may be known of the past will be found there for your attention. It is a little interesting that a few distress their own heart's directions even without developing them, for what neither these professors nor artists have yet done with that carpentry is to plan it naturally for any country. Neither journalists nor architects of international sort have been global enough to perform on its stage usefully so as to find some space for a modern and reasonable countryside. But the modern and reasonable winds are already there which have just begun to blow over local wastes. They remain not winds but lose themselves by dividing through the clouds which they have multiplied where there is neither any way of silence nor any rest left to have. 93. When there is neither any subtraction nor deduction nor removal nor any taking away of what is concrete and developed, then the freshness will be a refinement, and it will purify by its increase. And when there is neither reduction nor any build down nor decrease nor shortening nor shrinkage nor depletion nor depreciation nor cancellation nor erasure nor amputation nor negativity nor minus sign to take away from it all nor withdrawal nor curtailment nor any lessening nor abatement nor anything to shave off nor any filing away nor leaching nor draining nor thinning out nor cutting out nor any extirpation nor any nipping off nor shearing nor stripping away nor omission nor editing nor voiding nor superfluity, then it all will remain functional, but there will be neither mass nor size nor largeness nor bigness nor greatness nor vastness nor structure nor magnitude nor bulk nor volume nor body nor dimension nor caliber nor proportion nor measure nor convergence nor area nor circumference nor square footage nor diameter nor radius nor boundary nor border nor periphery nor linear measurement nor length nor height, which becomes unified. And there will be nothing to learn as the heights are dissolved by the mechanics of a dissolution. And there will be no way even to begin with some ancient wholesomeness with what was once bad in the doorway. And there is not going to be a way around the boredom unless a joy is imagined. But if this is not the plan, then the first chance to shape the floor plan will not make for any house imagined. 94. There are 7 sizes to a space into which the winds nonchalantly blow to make them shift into one whole size, yet time has no way. The practical mess is of nature's groupings where the flowers collect and lift above their little spots without a way either to cause a shift in their place. A little spot from which I separate to another little spot was where I was previously not finished, and neither am I here but that I am here now. And, still nothing is separate from its purpose even during bad times when injustices would have you less important than you are away from this site. I cannot be going off farther just yet. And I cannot let the parking lot straighten out just because all is out of reach, though infinity is not upon this site just yet. And, I am just about to keep it straight, and I will remain upon this major inroad to stop the site from becoming too minor within the parking lot. 95. Many winds at once will scatter what I lost, and then they will curve outward, upward, or drop straight down to waste their time. And, unlike how they waste time, the spirit is on its course to bear itself to the field. There are some columns which a sculptor has set out, yet the structure itself is ruined, and though there is no presentation of any silence just yet, still the spirit finds its own ruination impossible. And, there are no computers here, nor are there any study models circling around because they have been lost. And, in this region, the disconnectivity is not anyone's business, and the spirit cannot be pointed at, and no one is on alert to these surroundings that could have been for its message. And there are no machines to ruin this future here. And on the ground a spirit cannot be seen, but that its love still resides with care is what presides here. 96. The largeness has begun, and the concrete does not go along there, so this is not a presentation just yet, but it is clear that there is a darkness which we have made. And I will stand in it without another for now, and the attempt will not be made to be in fashion, but I will know that if I feel good, then it will be done humbly. Yet, it cannot be accomplished when things are not all right. And I have some hope that what I cannot do now is be ordinary. But upon my walk, when I am thinking about the ground upon which I walk, then if I have not come here to dance over it, then my plan will be to slow down naturally. And, even without any music, I will move, and the teachers of my teachers will have me form my very own building, into which I might humbly perfectly know that the architecture will not move as I move, but it will spread out flat its structure. And the clarity will need not be arranged by going back to it. But upon the whole field which has been envisioned, I have been invited here to rest with it. The contract is not final, and I still feel the hope that with some action there will be strength, that by this contract I will in effect find out what my best will be. 97. The serious building is over, and yet it has just begun, and what is right about the beginning is that darkness whence the love comes. There are no cars around now, and the husband has been married long, but there are no knights on horseback with their coconuts to come. The ancient things are in themselves, and nature herself continues onward, and she is never done with her seriousness. And, the seriousness of nature has not been all heeded, and her fields are alike for the heroes and those who are not. She has no Bible nor God to say things to, but the slowness of our speech, and the sometime dumbness of our spirits affirm are part of the silence which she gives. And the spirits are literal enough to give over what is not literal within them, and so spirits have less to change than what any winds would have them interpret. And the winds themselves seem not ever to change what can be interpreted by our impressions of the sky. And later the seriousness will wither away, and the past will catch up to answer itself when all seems to have been quit of it. 98. There is a work to be free to work as one likes, and there is a work on the mess which works to describe it. The work of something new has to be worked out, and there are no boundaries nor limits to such work. And, what is lost in the words, and what is coming back is the spirit that knows its freedom. The rest of humanity may be passionately natural, yet I am stuck with my passion for hope, which is to plan what I can within me. The spirit has its history, and when it comes, my own will pull as the clouds pull, itself on its own course for purpose or not, and to move or not, it still has its passions as the clouds do, and as the design would have it amongst nature herself with the passionate winds and their end. 99. The clouds are misunderstood by those who have to understand them and their phenomena. Thus they dissolve, and some hope and some passion remain. And, there is no interaction between my body and theirs, for they are active where I am not, and my spirit rests with the hope that some plan may be made so that it may transcend its rest. This spirit must transcend whatever is not, and it must have an order to the chaos if it step by step can find some feeling within which it designs almost impossibly, but that it thinks it can spiritually thrive by just thinking is why it is moved to some. 100. It was almost as if I knew, it was as if I had some wisdom to continue what I could not, and in that loss, and by my wandering away, I felt the crowd, and I could not speak to them. The privacy of my place was specific enough, and being closed off within nature has not given me anything which myself could not have imagined. And my loss is of that which no thoughts can heal, because without fulfillment I have wasted my passions to be on the one side that was good. And with reason to hope that such my loss can find its perfect end, still no wisdom has been learned yet of how it will end. FINIS.